But that is a lie from the pit of hell, because you don't have to be at a church to be in ministry. And that's what God really showed me through all of this, is that I'm not done ministering just because I resigned a role in a ministry.
Welcome to the Holderman Homes podcast. I'm your host, Raven Holderman, where we talk heaven, health, and home. All right, guys. So for today, I have Stephanie Stephenson with me, who I know pretty well. So she is the founder of the Jesus Transformation Project. She has such an interesting background. She's been in theater at Sight and Sound in Branson doing Christian productions. She has had her own startup table businesses, like building them from scratch and driving them across the country. She's also been in ministry. She's been in kids ministry, and then she was in Connections as a Connections director. And she also did events, and she's actually still doing events as contract work now, but for a major church here in Arizona. So, she's kind of dipped her toe in a lot of different things. And I think that really speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit that we want to talk about today, because she has just recently launched her Jesus Transformation Project. And so I want to give her a space to talk about it in the lens of helping you, my listeners, figure out how to do your own entrepreneurial thing with your own entrepreneurial spirit and keep it going, keep that momentum going, just kind of dig into her story and see what you can pull from it. So I am going to get us started with a question, which is, what got you thinking about the Jesus Transformation Project to begin with? Like, how did you get started, Stephanie?
Well, I guess I could start back with my childhood. I've always been
all the way back.
All the way back. I've always been the type of human who loves to see things well and healed, and not only just people, but also animals. There's some stories in my past about bringing things back to life, like frozen cats and hummingbirds and things, but that's for another podcast for another day. But there's always been a sort of passion inside me for seeing people transformed, and transformation as in freedom in Christ, and freedom from anxiety, from stress, from depression, and all of those darker emotions that we as humans do experience in life. So with that said, I have enjoyed always being a part of ministry. I've always enjoyed being a part of seeing people's face light up when they experience the power of God. And while I was in theater for a long, long time, over 20 years, I was on the other side of that in a way. I was an actress on stage, and so we weren't able to see the eyes light up as much because people were so far away from us. Well, we knew that was transformative because a lot of the theater I did was in Christian theater and biblical musicals. But when I got into ministry, that is where I found that the spark sort of ignited in me. I was able to speak into people and speak into teams, have one-on-ones and meetings with individuals, and be able to just foster an environment of love and of in a sense, development and self-improvement. And I tell you, like, it lights me up to see people's lives transformed. And so I had been in ministry for a few years and sort of felt like a nudge to resign and wasn't sure what's next. So I had been in ministry here in Arizona at a pretty large church from the ground up, almost from the inception of the church, for about 5 years, when I just felt the Lord saying, it's time to leave. It's time to go. And he sort of opened that door and kicked me through it. And I wasn't sure what that next step was, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't done with ministry. I think I had come across a life coaching ad or something online, and it hit me like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be doing that, but I'm supposed to be doing that on the level of Christianity, like a Christian life coach, someone who who speaks into
Yeah.
individuals and helps them see their true potential in Christ, but also gives them practical things in order to help move them along too. But even more than that, being a part of ministry, I had experienced and had seen a lot of the people that I was in ministry with operating out of task as opposed to out of love, and task being the overflow of the love. And I was seeing a lot of burnout. I was seeing a lot of stress. I was seeing a lot of people feeling undervalued. And that it was never an intention of anyone to make someone feel undervalued or underappreciated or overworked. It just happens in ministry all of the time. And so God ignited this passion in me to change that, to transform that, because how can the one be reached and discipled without the 99 being completely whole? So that's how it started. I enrolled in life coaching school, and along with the gifts that he had already instilled in me just from my past work and experience and just being born with a certain passion inside and certain skills, I graduated with a dual certification in health and life coaching, with the intention of starting the Jesus Transformation Project to help individuals and ministry teams. So that's where it started. It started in July, and things are happening already.
I want to jump off a couple things that you said there, just going back a little bit. So I know that a lot of people who are in ministry feel like called there, but there's also this other group that feels stuck there because it's like, if I leave ministry, am I still doing the Lord's work? So I want to talk about that kind of mindset shift and like the power of following the nudge, I suppose. 'Cause it's a really scary thing for us, especially as women, I think, to make that leap into doing something for ourselves as much as doing it for other people, of course. But what I mean by that is, like, we have to be our own managers. We have to be our own boss. We have to chase the uncertain dream. So for you, the decision to leave ministry, following the nudge, I mean, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, yes. I could have been scared. I think in most people's minds, when you resign from ministry, you're thinking that's it. That was it.
Yeah.
That was sort of the top of my experience, what God had for me. That was my purpose, and now it's done. But that is a lie from the pit of hell, because you don't have to be at a church to be in ministry. You don't have to be on a ministry team at a specific church to do ministry. And that's what God really showed me through all of this, is that I'm not done ministering just because I resigned a role in a ministry. In fact, it was almost like he was propelling me forward into a new ministry and into something greater. And yes, everything was uncertain. Everything was uncertain. I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew I was supposed to do this. But God really brought me through a process of letting go of the how any of this was going to happen, because you got to do that. Otherwise, that's a lot of stress and anxiety that just pops right back onto you. Because really, realistically, all things are in His control. Nothing is in our control except for our thoughts that we think. And if we can train our thoughts on the good and the greater, He's going to take the how and all of the little steps that we're like, I don't know what to do next, or I don't know, all of these things. He's going to give you those steps little by little by little by little, and bring people into your life that can fulfill some of the things that you're a little unsure about, or maybe a little insecure, not in a bad way, but just like, I'm not great at that. And that's what he's done with me. A lot of the uncertainty too, when you think about it, that's a scary thing, like stepping into the unknown. We as humans, just scientifically, our brains love to stay in the familiar. We love to be where we think it's comfortable, even if
Comfortable demons. Yeah.
it's at a detriment to ourselves and to the people around us. But what is just on the other side of that is the greater. Just on the other side of that is the blessing. And God always wants us to step further into the greater and not stay even in the good, because He always has something for us just on the other side of that. And it's usually in the unknown that it lies.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's in Daniel, like he prayed for like 3 weeks before it was answered, but the angel confirms that his prayer was heard the first time he prayed. Word was sent, but it took 3 weeks to answer, which actually built up Daniel's prayer life. So there's, still good that comes from that, but
Yes.
it's that waiting. It's okay, you pray and you pray again and you pray again and you pray again, and the answer might be one day away. So I love how you put that. It kind of goes into, especially, first of all, we really like to know the how as people. Like, we're very like, I want to know how I'm going to do this XYZ before I get started.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a mentality mindset that we have to also get past and get over. And it kind of brings me to the next part I wanted to ask you about is like, you're the founder of the Jesus Transformation Project. So you are literally building this from the ground up. So how do you stay motivated? How do you keep grinding as it builds momentum? And how do you personally know what your next step is? Because it's like let's just go back. You say, okay, I feel the nudge. I feel called to do life coaching. I feel called to start the Jesus Transformation Project. I feel called to help people transform. I feel called into my own ministry for Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the call, you're starting to answer the call, you're walking the walk. But then how do you personally figure out what your next step is to keep walking the walk, to keep momentum going, to keep disciplined and encouraged?
That's such great questions. I think the looming, I don't know if that's the right word, but the overarching, maybe, calling on my life is to be light that pierces darkness. And I know that sounds maybe like, what does that mean? Like, what is that? What does that mean? As I was looking back and starting the Jesus Transformation Project, and I knew there was a fire in my heart to help people, I realized that with that, like being the light for people, being joy, being just life, speaking life into people, I realized like that is the overarching dream in my life or purpose in my life. So everything funnels through that. So everything that I do funnels through that. I like practically wise, I set out a list of priorities in my life, about 3 to 5 lists of priorities. I just make a list. And this, guys, like literally, I haven't been doing this my whole life. This has just happened within the last year. So I've just figured this out. But I've got a list. So like family is top on my list of priorities, to make time for them, because in the past I have gone all in on things and the family has been there for me, but I haven't made it a priority to just stop working, to stop ministry at a certain time. And that's what I do. I stop and I just enjoy my family. Another one is the project, like literally the project. And another one is, let's see, my music. I love to sit down and sing and write music and just sing. So, you line out the priorities. And then if anything else that you've got going on, just on a practical thing, doesn't line up or fit into your priorities, then you learn how to say no. And you learn, even if you're saying no to some good things in order to stay into those priorities, that for me has really, really, really helped me to stay focused. It's helped me to stay motivated. It's helped me to continue to have energy and the brain space to be able to focus too. Because when there's so many different things going on, and there will be times when you're going to have tons going on in your life and your brain feels like it's a ping pong table with the balls going back and forth. Mine has felt that way the last few days with everything seemingly going on right now. But when you learn to focus on those priorities, and you don't apologize for saying no to people, because what you're doing is you're taking care of yourself. You're going to be much, much, much greater of not like a person, but someone who is like focused than you would be if you're saying yes to a million different things. So practically wise, that is how I do it. I do so much. But how do I stay motivated beyond just priorities? Because I know I've tested this dream, I've tested this purpose of mine, and I know that it is something that God has given me. And so when you think about something in your life that you want to do, if it's something that you can achieve within like a time period and you know all of the steps and how to do it and you could write it all down, that's not the purpose and that's not the dream. The dream and the purpose is something that lights you up inside and you don't know how it's going to happen because God wants you to surrender all of the worry and the fear and the uncertainty on the how it's going to happen. And what he wants you to do is trust him in that. And that's how I know that I'm following my purpose and my dream. And that motivates me. And it's kind of like a counteractive sort of thing. But when you learn to surrender, again, that how, then you maintain motivation and you maintain the will to keep moving forward.
I like a couple things that you said there. First of all, before my mom brain forgets, I like it's that concept of your calling should be bigger than you are. Because if there's no room for you to grow, then you're stagnant. And stagnation produces all sorts of problems in your life. It's it's
Yeah.
that pool of water that's just sitting there getting contaminated. So
Yeah.
you have to have that growth. You can't be stagnant. So your calling should be bigger than you are. I like how you put that. Like, that is really the dream. That is really the purpose. And I like what you also said about before, like, you have a very set list of your priorities. Because, like, I'm a mom of an almost 2-year-old. I've got another on the way. And, I'm trying to launch a podcast. I have another little project that I'm working on. And I like ideas. I like playing with ideas. I like having all the things. But without the prioritization, I can do the thing where I get all in on one idea,
Mm-hmm.
even podcasting, for example,
Yeah.
and the others start to slip, like they're going down the hill a little if I'm not careful. And another part of that is the idea of saying no. Now, I personally don't have very many issues saying no. You know me. You know that I don't have issues saying
No,
no. If
you don't.
I've said no to a pastor to his face, like, it just happens sometimes. Well, if you're me, it happens. I think a lot of listeners will resonate with that. Like, giving yourself permission to say no to things that don't fit your priorities. It's not that you're just gung ho on
Yeah.
saying no. It's not that you want to be obstinate. It's that you're actually valuing appropriately what God has put in your life to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
to care for, to steward. That's the word I'm looking for. Like,
Yes.
he has given you these priorities. He's helped you figure them out. And now it's your job to steward them accurately. And if you're saying yes to everything, then again, it's that idea that these things that you're stewarding are going to start to fall down the hill because other things are coming before the things that you are actually supposed to, God given, supposed to be leading and in charge of.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I didn't mention this before, but time with God in the morning, that is on my priority list for every day. And then time to just be, time, just nourishment time for myself is a
Mm-hmm.
priority for me. And one of my clients once asked, she's like, but I hate saying no because I don't want to disappoint anybody. And believe me, I've been that person that will not say no to anybody because I don't want them. It's a people pleasing thing. But if you look at
Yeah,
it
I don't
this
do
way,
that.
no, you don't do that at all. You don't do that at all. But those of your listeners out there are a lot of listeners out there probably who are afraid to say no because they don't
Yes.
want to disappoint. And what I was able to work through on my own is that when you've got that list of priorities there, And you know that by keeping those priorities, you are going to be lighter, you're going to have more life, you're going to have more clarity on your in your mind, more focus, more energy to be. 75% of what we are in life is just who we're being. It's 25% is what we're doing. 75% is who we're being. So that matters. So if we're not feeding into ourselves and making that a priority, that's an issue. But nobody else knows what your schedule is. Nobody else knows what is on your calendar. So even if, and this is something that helps me stay motivated, back to that question too. If I've got someone who wants me to come hang out and I'm like looking at my priorities and I don't have the time because I want to fit in the time where I go walk and watch the sunset, which is one of my nourishment things, I will say no, but they don't have to know the reason why I'm saying
No.
no. They don't have to
No,
know. It's
I
just
like that.
it's to know I'm so sorry. Or you don't have to say I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
I can't fit that into my schedule, but I'd love to schedule a time later. And that is like, in a sense, it's a freeing moment for those of us out there who have struggled in the past with saying no to people.
Well, and I, on the other end, as someone who is very comfortable saying no, had to learn to add kindness to the no.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
I don't feel a need to validate my no. I don't. I don't need to validate my time and how I spend it. That's between me and God, really, and my family, my husband, right? Like, I might have to validate those things between God, my husband, my kids. I don't owe anyone else a validation for how I choose to spend my time or the dedications, priorities that I've made. But that doesn't mean that I need to be unkind about my no. So I'm not going to add that I'm sorry, because I'm not sorry. I have priorities and I need to respect those priorities. But at the same time, I don't have to deliver it in such a way that it feels like I'm devaluing them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's, if you're on my side of that spectrum, that's a good lesson to put there. I was just reminding myself this morning about the Proverbs 31 woman. And it specifically says in the Proverbs 31 that she speaks with kindness. She's wisdom, but she has kindness attached to it. So just adding that there, like, no, you don't have to validate your time. You don't have to give excuses or sorries. Just say no kindly.
Absolutely. That's super important.
So I do have another question, because you're founding this, kind of in the second chapter of your life. So I just got to ask,
Yeah.
is it ever too late to start?
No, no. And I'll be the first to admit that I had that mindset for many, many years. And that related back to a casting call when I was auditioning to be Mary in a Christmas show. And I ended up being the understudy because they felt that I was too old. Well, I took that as my age, but what they actually meant it as is I knew how to argue. So like I had too many life experiences and I was too familiar with how to do it. That's what they meant. But what I spent years struggling with was that I was just too old for anything. I was too old up until the last couple of years when I realized, wait a second. If you look at the Bible, the majority of the people, the prophets, the people that are the characters, the main characters, if you will, in the stories of the Bible, were not young people. They were older people. And Moses, by the time Joshua and Caleb led the people into the promised land, they were old. Abraham, Sarah, Jacob,
Yeah.
Adam and Eve, literally, like they were like hundreds of years old. It's just in Noah. It's crazy. So again, that's like another lie of the enemy. We are never too old. Never.
The Bible spends a lot of time talking about the word wisdom, which you can't really have wisdom if you're really young, I feel like. And you can have, innate sense of wisdom in
Mm-hmm.
some ways. Like, God will give you things that you're born with and know innately, but there's a lot of wisdom that you can only gain through lived experience.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to Christian entrepreneurship, as far as my listeners are concerned, don't take your age as
Mm-mm.
a stopping point. Like, don't stop the dream that God has for you because you're worried about a number. God's not worried about a number.
Oh, no, no,
So
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I wanted to just give you a little moment to shout out what you're doing. So, what special projects do you have coming up?
Oh goodness, I feel like there's a lot coming up. So with the Jesus Transformation Project, working with clients right now individually, I'm looking for my first ministry team to start working with probably after the first of the year.
I'm gonna interrupt you here. So, when you say working with a ministry team, my audience doesn't know what you mean.
Okay, so ministry team. So that is any team that is either a church or a Christian organization that right now I'm working with team development, and but it starts with making sure that the individuals on the team are healthy mind, body, and spirit. So I would love if any one of your listeners out there are a part of a church that has a ministry team. And when I say ministry team, I'm meaning I'm not necessarily the pastor of the church or pastors of the church. I'm talking about the second and third tier levels of leadership, like your coordinators, your directors, like parking director, connections director, kids director, nursery coordinator, volunteer coordinator, those levels of leadership in the church. That's what I'm talking about. So my goal with that is to find a church that has a leadership team of 2 to 10 people right now. And what I would do is I would come in, I would evaluate like the gauge, the temperature of the team, and then I would meet individually and do sessions individually with them, which that entails once a week for a 3 month period, 90 days. And then team sessions all together. And that's where a lot of the development comes as a team and the growth and connection as a team. And that would happen again over that 90 days. So it's an entire program that it creates health for mind, body, and spirit, but it also creates a sense of connection and leadership training and leadership skills in order to be able to be healthy as a whole and as an individual. So that's coming up. That's coming up. Also, the project is sponsoring events. That's one of the main, I guess, visions of the Jesus Transformation Project, other than the coaching, is to create and sponsor events like the one called Underground Worship for Women coming up here in the West Valley, Phoenix, November 7th. And so what that is really is the project is creating an environment for individuals, but specifically this one is creating an environment for women, or fostering an environment that is something that is comfortable. It's welcoming, it's inviting. It's an environment where they don't have to come to perform, to put on a show, or try to be something that they're really not, or feel uncomfortable, especially if you're shy or introverted. So this event is a worship night, basically. It's worship under the stars, literally under the stars. It's outside with Edison lights, hay bales, a bonfire, a coffee bar, like a coffee house sort of feeling. And it's going to be a 2 hour night, just a beautiful time of bringing women into the heart of worship. And it's not an experience, it's an encounter with God. And that's different because an experience to me is an experience. It's something you go to and you experience. And yes, you will experience something, but it's the encounter with God. And there'll be some Q&A happening in between sets of worship with some of the women there too, and I'm excited about that. But that's on the forefront. That's coming up very, very soon. We've got the Facebook invite out. The invite cards have arrived. The coffee bar is being like thought about now, and the worship team is practicing next week. And we're expecting a good amount of women. It's word of mouth. That was another vision God had downloaded into my spirit, that this wasn't meant to feel like a service. It wasn't meant to feel like a women's event where you come in and you have a stage and people are like and none of that is wrong. None of that is wrong. But this was meant to be just different, like a come as you are. No table games, no anything that makes you kind of feel like, oh, I feel a little weird right now. So I'm excited about that. Also, there is an event happening with the local church that I attend and the city. It's called Christmas in the Park. It's happening December 20th through the 24th. Well, I am creating and directing, project managing an experience called Journey to Bethlehem. And this is something brand new, I think, even for the city of Surprise. But it's a big theatrical thing, and with big sets, actors, scripts, live animals, sound effects, other special effects, and just again, like an encounter, an interactive walkthrough encounter with God and the Holy Spirit, and you get to come and see uh, like a little bird's eye view of what Mary and Joseph would have experienced from the time they left Nazareth all the way to the birth of Jesus, and the perspective of townspeople, centurions, shepherds, their perspective of what that was like too. So that's kind of what's going on right now. It's a lot, but it's all God led, and it's like there have been moments where I've had to stop myself and breathe for a moment and just pray and like, God, I'm taking it on too much because I'm starting to feel like I want to throw up right now, or I'm starting to feel like anxious, like, oh, I can't do it. And he's like, you know what? You're right. You can't do it. That's why I'm with you on this. I'm with you. Yeah.
No. Okay. So you got a lot going on. You got a lot that you are juggling. So you're
Yeah.
looking to start a couple new things. You're proactively about to launch your underground worship, and you've got your contracting out with the church to do the Journey to Bethlehem. I love it. So I'm going to end on one more question for you, which is really just, do you have any advice or encouragement to women specifically who are thinking about stepping into some sort of Christian entrepreneurial thing or spirit, but they're afraid?
Mm. Don't give up. Don't give up. Consistency is also key too, because when you do something consistent, whether your schedule says 3 times a week, 2 times a week, every day, whatever that consistency looks like for you, don't give up. It's like when you go to the gym and you're working out and you're wanting to lose a few pounds or gain some muscle or tone yourself up. You've done it for a month and you're like, I've done it for a month. I'm not seeing any results, so I'm done. I'm stopping. Right there, that point where you're feeling like I'm ready to stop because I'm not seeing anything happening from it, the breakthrough is about to come through. It's always like the breakdown always happens right before the breakthrough. It's always darkest before dawn, like all of those isms right there. That is certainly true. That's what I've experienced in the time that I've been working on the Jesus Transformation Project. But that is the one thing I just keep hearing in my spirit every time I feel like, don't give up. And it is true. It is true.
Yep. Consistency.
Consistency.
It's very important for any sort of entrepreneurial spirit. Is you do have to show up every day and be consistent with it. That goes, so you have the priorities and then you have to have the consistency.
You
I
do.
like it.
And it doesn't have to be a lot of doing. Remember, 75% is who you're being. The doing could be one little small step, a 1% step that would bring you closer to what your goal is, or what your purpose, your dreams are. It doesn't have to be much. It could just be setting aside a little time each day to brainstorm, or to spend a little bit more time organizing yourself, clearing the clutter, just all sorts of different things. It doesn't have to be much. It's just being consistent, just showing up, like you said.
All right. Well, I am so glad that you came on, and I'm
Thank
so
you for
glad
having me.
to give a shout out to the Jesus Transformation Project. And I love that other women can look at this, pull from this, and make the leap for themselves as far as Christian entrepreneurial spirit goes. I want to just remind my listeners that I will have details in the description, links to Stephanie's social media and the Jesus Transformation Project social media, so that way you can see what events that she has going on. If you're listening now, you can check out the underground worship.
Yeah.
If you are listening later, I'm sure she'll have new stuff going on her page that you can look forward to. I am going to read a verse, and that is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Just follow the nudge, guys. If you have a dream that you are called to from the Lord, follow it. It's so simple and so hard, but that's what you got to do, because He will prosper the plans that He has given you. So go ahead and click and subscribe to the Holderman Homes podcast. And you can follow on YouTube as well, again, at the Holderman Homes podcast, or you can follow me on social media at Raven Holderman. So bye, Steph. Future Raven jumping in here real quick just to let you guys know about today's sponsor, which is HP Instant Ink. If you're a Christian entrepreneur, you're going to need a printer and you're going to need ink. Might as well make it easy on yourself. Get it shipped directly to your door through HP Instant Ink services. It's what I use when I'm doing all of my printing needs because it's easy, it's fast, it's reliable. So I have a friend code for you in the description box below where you get one free month and so do I. Check it out, guys.